In today's video, I test drive the brand new Leica Q343 against the original 28mm Leica Q3, and I get to go in a CyberTruck, a Cyber Beast, during my workshop in Las Vegas. Coming up, I share the results from my 2-day hands-on test of the Leica Q3, my opinions, the pros, the cons, everything you need to know, and of course, lots of sample photos. Welcome, Matt here from MrLeica.com. So first, let me tell you what you need to know about the Leica Q343 for those of you short of time, and then stay with me, and if you want more info, I'll share more on the CyberTruck and photos. To paint the full picture, I was flown to Vegas to do a 3-day workshop for one of my students. He's interested in buying a CyberTruck, so he hired this Cyber Beast for 3 days, and that's how all this came about. Okay, the Leica Q343. So first, the design. For those of you already familiar with the Leica Q3, the Leica Q343 looks almost identical at first glance. The lens is very slightly longer, but the hood is shorter, meaning they're almost identical in dimensions. On the back, as you can see, they're almost the same. And again, at first glance, they are very, very similar. This is part 1 of a 2-part video. In part 2, I'll do side-by-side photo testing against the Leica Q3 and against APO lenses from the M mount system. Okay, the lens, the Leica Q343 comes armed with a APO-Summicron 43mm f2 lens, similar dimensions to the original Summilux on the Leica Q3. This is a super sharp lens and it gives you the same macro mode and both autofocus and manual focus. In terms of colours, from my first testing, the colours are identical to the Leica Q3. That means if you've already got my Q3 preset pack, or if you head to the link below in the description, you can pick up my Q3 presets and they'll work just the same on the Q3 camera and the Q343. As I say, I go through this more in the part 2 video. Here's some quick examples. On the left, you see the raw files. On the right, raw plus preset. You can see the colours really pop when you add a quick preset. That's all I do to these images. Add preset, done. Okay, macro mode. So the Q343 has got the same macro design as the Q3 with like a clutch, and so you can do more manual focus and autofocus. It's worth noting once you're in macro mode, you get 2.8, so you get more hexagonal bokeh rather than an f2. It automatically stops down 1 stop in macro mode. It's really, really good for product shots and kind of food shots, as you can see here, and maybe camera photos. And I think it's one benefit over a standard M camera with a 0.7 close focus distance. Bokeh, the f2 lens gives you nice bokeh. It's round, wide open, and then gets a bit more hexagonal stop down. If you're using the macro mode, you can get particularly nice bokeh, but even at kind of normal-ish distance, you can get really nice soft blurry background, as you can see in some of these shots. Lens flare. Being in Vegas, we had pretty much sunshine every day, so it was very easy to test for lens flare. My first attempts failed and I got no flare, but as the days passed, I kept trying different kind of scenarios and eventually I got the lens to flare, as you can see in some of these shots. It's very flare resistant, but if you try hard enough, you can get some flare, as you see here. Autofocus. So I was testing the Leica Q343 against both the Q3, but I also had the Hasselblad X2D with me. That's going to come in another video. And I'd say the autofocus speed is probably similar to the Hasselblad. This is not an exact test because I'm not normally an autofocus user, but I was using like road signs and shooting from the car window as we were driving on these road trips. And based on what I could shoot out the car window, I'd say it's similar to what I could get with the Hasselblad X2D. I love these car shots, but let me know what you think. Sharpness. You're definitely not going to have any problem with sharpness with this camera. From f2, the APO lens is already stunningly sharp. This is corner crops, and there's not really much difference between f2, f2.8, and f4. Okay, so for those of you still interested, the rest of the video now is going to be real-world sample photos during my hands-on test using the Q343 and the CyberTruck as we go across America. So day 1 was picking up the CyberTruck, test driving it, and also trying it off-road. The first thing you realise when you get a CyberTruck is you don't get a key, you get a credit card. You then have to work out where you swipe the credit card on the car to get into the car. And we found that you have to swipe it on kind of the central panel, and then you press a little button, or you press a panel itself, and that opens the car. So that was all very new. And then you get inside and there's this like crazy detailed console, and it's like a flight simulator. There's just so much information. And we're doing a bit of a tour around the local area near to Las Vegas, and we're heading to 7 Magic Mountains. If you've been here before, You may know what to expect, but this was my first time. But as we got there, there's some kind of dust cloud thing going on, and so you can just about see the mountains, these like man-made things in the distance. But we kind of turned around and went straight back out again because it wasn't really worth the dust and the effort. From there, we headed off-road to see what the CyberTruck can do off-road. Although it feels like a sports car inside, it goes up mountainy things without even struggling outside. They can see John, my student, who kindly made all this happen, so big shout out to John. I was shooting both film and digital for these. This is my first ever Joshua Tree photo, and it made me think straight away of Nick Carver, the awesome YouTuber. If you've seen his work, he's got an old video where he did the Joshua Tree photo on film, and I still remember that. Here you can see my film camera next to the Q343 and more sample photos. Not only did I have a Joshua Tree, I had an old American train as well, or a normal American train, which also looked very cool. And the CyberTruck is just such a good model for pictures. I just love how angular and modern it is on the kind of Nevada desert landscape. It's just such a contrast of like new and old, or basic and really modern. And yeah, I took a lot of photos on film as well as the ones you're seeing here on the Q343. All the photos on the Q343 are shot wide open to give you an idea. Seeing the train in the distance also reminded me of the Nick Carver train video where he shoots a large format photo under a train and frames the distant mountains in the background. I couldn't really get close enough to the train, but I took a few kind of token photos as we drove past. Here you can see the close focus ability of the Q343, and those angular lines of the CyberTruck are just so pleasing to take photos of. If I won the lottery and I was based in the US, I might even be tempted to get one myself. This vehicle is like nothing I've ever been in before in terms of looks and just everything on the inside as well. It's very advanced for its time, and the console itself has just got so much information. You need to kind of study a manual just to work out how to press all the various buttons. From there, we headed to Boulder City to grab some lunch and a drink, and also to test our cameras. We had quite a lot of cameras between us, and so yeah, this kind of old town vibe worked really well for kind of the stuff that I'm interested in. And the Q343 did such a great job, as you can see in these photos. This was one of my favorite scenes of the whole trip. I believe it's a wedding car or a funeral car, maybe a funeral car. And we just happened to walk past it in Boulder City. And then to top it off, we found like an old road track behind the shops. We kind of stepped over some workings to get to it. And then next to that, there's some old cars as well. So it was kind of heaven for both film shooters and, in this case, the Q343. I'm excited to get the film developed, but these Q343 photos gives you an idea of what you can expect if you head to Boulder City. Here you can see the close-up with the macro mode. And then by the time we got back to the car, the sun was already setting, and so it was time to head back into Las Vegas. The colours from the Q343 with the preset attached are absolutely stunning in these sorts of situations. And here you can see the CyberTruck with the lights on. I got dropped off, and that was the end of day one. Okay, day two was a biggie. We're going to do a 600-mile road trip starting in Las Vegas all the way to Duck Creek Village in Utah and back again in the same day. I was in the back this time, and one advantage of being in the back is the CyberTruck has got a completely glass roof, so you get an amazing view of like buildings you go past. And as you can see from the console, it's so detailed. If like a car near you brakes, the lights on the screen break on the kind of diagram. Before we set up on our road trip, we needed to get some breakfast, so we headed to some local coffee shop. As you can see, there's quite a few cameras in the car between us. Here you can see an M camera next to a Q3 for size. The Q343 is the same size. And here you can see my attempt at trying to find a healthy breakfast in America. It's harder than it looks. A few more cameras and a few more lenses for those who are interested. These are both 35mm Summilux lenses, but this one is the double spherical, pretty rare version. I think this is the one that Light Lens Lab are going to replicate, the spherical, which has got the full word spherical written on the front. That's how you tell the difference between a double spherical and a normal spherical. Then the one at the back is the f2.8 element. With our stomachs now satisfied, we hit the road heading north. I worked in the back from my laptop attached to our hotspot, so I could reply to all your YouTube comments, emails and all the usual stuff while enjoying the view out the window. The first stop was Mesquite, where we had to charge the car because the CyberTruck does roughly 250 miles per charge. Then it was on the road again, heading north, and it got prettier and prettier as we got towards Utah, cutting through the corner of Arizona. Here you can see on the map, this was real time. We were getting quite close to Zion Park and everything was just looking really beautiful. If you're a landscape photographer, I definitely recommend heading this way if you're kind of in the area and this is something you're interested in, especially at this time of year because you get the trees all with the really nice bright yellow leaves. We pulled over to take a few photos, as you can see here, and the colours are absolutely stunning. If you're local or recognise where we are, definitely comment below. From there we passed Zion National Park and headed closer towards Dixie National Forest. We stopped again to take photos, all really beautiful areas and lots of kind of wood cabin huts, as you can see here. It was like a different world to what I see in London. I've never really seen anything like this, only on YouTube from kind of fellow YouTubers, but highly recommend it. We visited the local post office. Here you can see the Duck Creek Village post office is actually a shipping container. And then we stopped to meet John's friends in another wood cabin. You can see the CyberTruck next to some like a mud vehicle thing, and this huge truck that was delivering yet another cabin, or I think it was a garage or something. Again, stuff I've seen on YouTube, but nothing I've seen in real life. Really pretty place. It doesn't matter if you shoot colour or black and white. The Q343 takes amazing pictures. Again, all shot wide open. You can see we're really lucky with the weather. Really nice light. All the photos you're seeing are raw photos plus preset. And because it was low sun, you could get that really nice light kind of skimming across the vegetation. Before we headed back, we visited another log cabin deeper into the forest, up some little mud track. And the grade into the driveway was really steep. And so it made for really nice photos, as you saw on the cover image. All these photos, again, Q343, just simple preset added and job done. And then on the way out we even saw some of the local wildlife. It was then a 3-hour drive back towards Las Vegas. Again, we were treated with the beautiful light, and we did have to charge once on the way back, and that allowed me to do both flare testing and Boker testing to make the most of this situation. I highly recommend trying a CyberTruck if you get the opportunity. It does 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, and so we're able to overtake 3 vehicles at a time in the kind of the twisty mountain roads where we're stuck behind slow moving farm traffic. And as you can see here, it even does like a light dance, which is, yeah, crazy, but I'm sure kids would love it in particular. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to see part 2 where I do comparison sample images, and as always, a huge thanks to my patrons and also John for making all this possible.